Thank you very much. So we move to item 3 on the agenda. And on this note, I'd like to invite our host, Engineer I.O. Dioke, fellow Nigerian Society of Engineers, to please introduce the guest speaker. Thank you.
Good evening, all. The President, Association of Consulting Engineers of Nigeria, Managing Director, ACEN, members of ACEN Zone 5, members of the Executive Council of ACEN, my fellow engineers. Good evening, all. May I have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker today, who is none other than a young, vibrant consultant who has gone through the oven. He is the managing director of PSA Consultants Limited. I know Engineer Ikechukwu Ofeze very well. Like I said, he has gone through the oven. He has done his apprenticeship, reason to be a consultant and reason to be a managing director. He has the experience. He's a digital consultant, and I'm sure he will do it will give us what we really expect from him on these resilient infrastructure projects, climate smart infrastructure projects. Having said that, I introduce now Engineer Ikechukwu Ofeze to have the floor. Engineer Ofeze.
Thank you very much. Okay, so without much further ado, I want to introduce what we are going to discuss about today. So okay, sorry for that interruption. So today we're going to discuss about climate smart projects. So in summary, what we are going to do today is the outline is talk about the climate change problem, steps taken to mitigate or adapt, project opportunities created, funding sources, the green bond framework, how to calculate emissions, that is CO2 emissions, the role of the infrastructure design engineers. So climate change, let's start by explaining the initial, what we are talking about. According to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change is defined as a change in the climate that is directly or indirectly attributable to human activities, which alter the composition of the planetary atmosphere and add to the natural climatic variability observed on similar time intervals. So green projects are projects. A green project is a project that reduces emissions or greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. The greenhouse gases in general, you're talking about CO2 emissions, methane, and some nitrous oxide. Those are the main gases. They constitute a small percentage of the gases in the atmosphere, but they cause significant damage. So this green project reduces emissions of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere, enhance greenhouse gas sequestration. That is, things like CO2 there's a cycle. The phase of the CO2 that is not in the air is referred to as when it's sequestered, either in trees or some other forms. Then the other thing, the Green Project is a project that improves resilience against climate change risks. So green projects, there are some projects that help in the adaptation of mankind to the new realities. And there are some projects that help to mitigate the things that cause the climate change. So that's why you have adaptation projects and you have mitigation projects. So the adaptation means anticipating the adverse effects of climate change and taking appropriate action to prevent or minimize the damage that they can cause. While mitigation, you're talking about making the impacts of climate change less severe by preventing or reducing the emission of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Mitigation is achieved either by reducing the sources of these gases, e.g. increasing the share of renewable energies, or establishing a cleaner mobility system, or enhancing the storage of these gases, like increasing the size of the forests. So, UN Convention on Climate Change is an international treaty adopted in 1992 at the 4th Summit of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The primary objectives of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change is to address the issue of climate change and its potential impacts on a global scale. It serves as the foundational framework for international efforts to combat climate change. Key features of UNFCCC include stabilization of greenhouse gas concentrations, then common but different responsibilities. Like the UNFCCC acknowledges that countries have varying historical contribution to greenhouse gas emissions and different levels of development. What this is saying is that some countries have already developed while under a less strict environment. So to be unfair to now tell the newly developing countries that they should be doing climate change while these people have already gone ahead in an easier environment. So this convention accepts that fact and it took steps to compensate for those effects. So that is what the common but differential responsibility refers to. Commitment to mitigation and adaptation. Then there's the regular reporting and review and COP meetings. COP meetings is what they are organized every year in different conferences, which is the Conference of the Parties, COP. Then the UNFCCC does financial and technical support and lays the groundwork for subsequent agreements and protocols. So one of the key protocols that affect what we do in this climate project is this Kyoto Protocol. Is an international agreement linked to the International United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which commits its parties by setting international binding emission reduction targets for greenhouse gases recognizing that the developing countries are principally responsible for current high levels of greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere as a result of more than 150 years of industrial activities. It was adopted in Japan in 1997. So the key features is that there's a binding emission reduction target for countries. There's a flexibility mechanisms, which is Kyoto Protocol introduced 3 market-based mechanisms to help countries meet their emission reduction targets. One is the emission trading, which allows countries to buy and sell emission allowances, encourage emission reductions where it is most economically efficient. Like if there's something you need to do in your country, but it's more efficient to do it in a different country, you can do it there and transfer the credit to your own country. Then there's the clean development mechanism. It permits industrialized countries to invest in emission reduction projects in developing countries and receive credits for those reductions. So this is a key thing that helps, that it's aimed to help developing countries finance these green projects, because these projects are expensive. So this is part of what we will key into to see how we can work with these clean development mechanisms to fund and encourage projects in our country when developing countries. Then the other one is a joint implementation, which is similar to clean development mechanism, but involves partnership between developed countries. Then the Kyoto Protocol also allowed for accountability and reporting, and also the Adaptation Fund, which is the Kyoto Protocol established an adaptation fund to finance projects and programs in developing countries to help adapt to adverse effects of climate change. Then there's the review and compliance. So I want to talk more on this clean development mechanism. Is defined in Article 12 of the protocol, allows for a country with emission reduction or emission limitation commitments under the Kyoto Protocol and XP Party to implement an emission reduction project in developing countries. Such projects can earn sellable certified emission reduction credits, each equivalent to 1 ton of CO2, which can be counted towards meeting Kyoto targets. So what this means is developed countries can fund projects in developing countries for climate change. So it's about understanding these clean development mechanisms and being able to structure projects that will be in line with it to qualify for funding. The mechanism is seen by many as a trailblazer. It is the first global environmental investment and credit scheme of its kind, providing standardized emission offset instruments. A CFD project might involve, for example, a rural electrification project using solar panels or installation of more efficient boilers. The mechanism stimulates suitable development and emission reduction. The mechanism simulates stable development and emission reduction while giving industrialized countries some flexibility in how they meet emission reduction or emission targets. So an example of a CMD project in Nigeria, there's the Kwale Opami CMD project in Ndokwa land, Delta States. It is one of the 2 UNFCCC registered projects in Nigeria. They focus on recovery and utilization of associated gas that would otherwise be flared. So the companies, these are done by some oil companies in Nigeria, and the project is projected to reduce emissions by an estimated 1.5 million metric tons of CO2 a year. So under the every country is expected to have what is called nationally determined contributions. So under the protocol, each country will say what they will do to help global warming and reduce CO2 emission. So the Nigerian government has made commitments of what it hopes to achieve. And being conversant with what the Nigerian commitments are is important, because when you are looking for funding for these projects, and if you demonstrate that your project is in line with Nigeria's determined contribution, it's part of what the people that provide funds look at. So the Nigeria is committed to its unconditional target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 20% below business as usual by 2023. To know how far we've gone. And increase its conditional target by 47% below business as usual by 2030 on condition of receiving appropriate support from the European countries. So the measures the Nigerian government have identified needed to deliver those NDCs targets in the energy sector. So there's a commitment to 80% population using LPG, that liquefied petroleum gas, and 13% using improved cook stoves by 2030. Energy efficiency target is 25% per year reduction in energy intensity across all sectors. Under transport, the government is planning for extra 100,000 buses by 2030. And if you're talking about 100,000 buses, you need to have the roads that these buses will go on. So these are part of the infrastructure that should be coming in to help achieve these targets. Then there's the rapid bus transport, should account for 21% of passenger traffic by 2032. Like when you talk about massive rapid transport, you're talking about the modal shift. What I mean is that if you move people from private cars to public transport, you get substantial savings in CO2 emission, and they burn less fuel and energy. Then they're also planning for 25% of trucks and buses using CNG by 2030. Under electricity generation, they have 30% of on-grid electrical from renewables, that is hydropower, small hydro, solar, solar power panels. But as engineers, when you hear these targets, all these things are infrastructure that needs to be built, which is work for engineers. So it's how we can identify these opportunities and see how we can structure these projects and get the financing and get this. So that is why we need to know where the world is going to, the kind of projects that we should be, because in Nigeria, we are used to looking for government contracts. You go and apply for bid and you get contracts. But as an infrastructure expert, you should be able to see how you can participate in structuring projects with alternative financing in order to achieve the climate targets already set by the government, and which developing countries have committed to assisting Nigeria and other developing countries to do. some of the complaints that some of these developed countries say is that they don't see enough projects from Nigeria. Because and many times their budgets are returned unspent because there are no viable projects. So we need to change the narrative and see how we can start structuring projects that will attract climate financing. So under oil and gas targets, they are targeting zero gas flaring by 2030 and 60% reduction in fugitive methane emissions. So those are the energy side. Then there's the agriculture, which is going towards climate smart agriculture. And 50% of cultivated land adopting intermittent aeration of rice fields. Then there's the categories under forestry and other land use, which is increased forest protection. That is 46,000 hectares of forest throughout the country to protect forests. Afforestation is also another key way of sequestering CO2 emissions. That is in terms of the tree leaves and the trunks. So that is for the Nigerian NDCs. So the funding sources for these climate projects. Funding climate smart projects in Nigeria, like in other countries, can be pushed through various financial models and mechanisms. Some of the options include looking for climate bonds. Climate bonds are specifically designed to raise funds for projects that have positive environmental and climate benefits. In 2018 and 17, the federal government issues the first green bonds. We were part of the engineers that helped to structure those projects and did the climate, packaging the projects. There are a number of documentation that is required, including emissions, calculations, and other things. So these kind of climate bonds are one of the options that can be used, because the ones issued by the federal government were fully subscribed by investors. Investors purchase these bonds, and the funds are then used for eligible climate projects. So you need to properly structure and package a project. Like we're used to say, okay, I'm going to build a road. Yes, it's a road, but you can also, that road can also be, it can be a climate project when it's properly described. Like you need to have enough information about the climate effects, the savings, in terms of these roads can be used for rapid bus transit. And to do rapid bus transit with CNG gas, you need roads that the buses will run. So that now makes that would make the road qualified for the climate funding. But there are many parameters and many requirements, which I will list some of these things in the course of this presentation. Another option is carbon financing and trading. Participating in carbon markets by settling carbon credits can provide revenue for projects that reduce greenhouse gas emission. The revenue comes from companies or countries purchasing these credits to offset their own emissions. Like there are some industries you'll be in that you cannot do very much to reduce your emission. Let's say you're an airline. If you must fly plane, you must reduce the emission. But what you can do is to fund somebody growing forest in Anambra State. And the forests now in that place, we release some, we capture some CO2, which you can now use it and say, see this CO2 are financed in Africa. It's now offsetting the emissions of my jets. So you can now claim those credits for a business. So one of the things we've been trying to sell to some state governments is forest bonds, where government will gazette existing forests, don't even have to create new ones, but gazette existing forests and sell the CO2 emissions from these forests to companies that are willing to buy those credits. So this is one of the many ways we can raise revenue for government. So, but the government will commit to not destroying those forests and leave those forests. So there are certain ways these transactions are structured, where the government will now be getting yearly revenue from the CO2 sequestration of the forest in the states. Also, the government can also get financing to expand the forests to other areas and increase their revenue. And the communities nearby can benefit from the forests. It's kind of adaptation, because we, in the world of, we need to adapt to a new environment. Let the communities understand that these forests are a source of livelihoods for them. If you plant economic trees that they will harvest things from there and sell, then they have an interest in making sure that those forests are maintained long term. So this is that is kind of discussion about the carbon trading and selling carbon credits. Then another way of financing these projects is international climate funds. International organizations such as the Green Climate Fund and the Global Environmental Facility provide financial assistance to climate-related projects in developing countries. Then there's the government grants and subsidies. Government agencies such as the Rural Electrification Agency support climate-smart projects. They help people that want to add solar panels to their projects. So they have some mechanisms where they assist in such projects. Then there's the private investment and venture capital, which is private investors and private and venture capital firms are also interested in funding climate smart projects. Why they do this is that they want to sell the green potentials of the business, and they want to say, oh yes, we are, because the buzzword now is being climate friendly and climate smart. So these companies tend to be interested in a properly packaged and structured project that will meet the requirements. And there's also the options of international aid and crowdfunding. And for these projects to be sellable, you need to do clear cost-benefit analysis. It is important, it's an important tool that is used to evaluate the feasibility of these projects. It helps to identify the cost and benefit of a project and determine whether it's worth pursuing. By using cost-benefit analysis, we can ensure that we are investing in projects that have the greatest impact on reducing greenhouse gas emissions and mitigating the effects of climate change. For instance, a cost-benefit analysis can be used to evaluate the feasibility of renewable energy projects such as solar, wind, hydroelectric projects. The analysis can help to identify the costs associated with building and maintaining this Okay. Okay, sorry, I understand it wasn't sharing, the screen wasn't showing before. Okay, sorry, let me. Okay, we'll send you the copy of the slides. So let me just quickly just go to where. Okay, so I think we were at the cost benefit analysis. That was just what we just discussed. Okay, so there are different organizations that provide guidance and there's no organization that provide guidance, and one of them is the International Capital Market Association. It's a trade association that represents financial institutions and organizations involved in international capital markets. It serves as a focal point for global bond, equity, and derivative markets. So they have a number of principles and guidelines and handbooks which are relevant for this project. Like the one you probably be hearing a lot about is the green bonds. So green bond principles. So green bonds are use of proceeds bonds that enable capital raising and an investment for new and existing projects with environmental benefits. Then there's a social bond principles. These are used of proceeds bonds that raise funds for new and existing projects with positive social outcomes. This seeks to support issuers in financing socially sound and sustainable projects that achieve greater social benefits. Then there is the sustainability bond guidelines. These are a combination of green and social bond. They also have some other climate transition finance handbooks and guidance handbooks. Now, the green projects there are different categories of green projects, and there are different environmental objectives that each of these categories seeks to address. This one is still okay. So some of the categories include renewable energy. So renewable energy projects under the objectives is seeking to achieve climate change mitigation. And also it's a natural resource conservation and pollution prevention control. So this lists different kinds of project categories and the various environmental objectives. So you need to find out the kind of projects you are doing and see what it falls under and the standard environmental objectives that they fall under. So green bond framework are guidelines and principles that issuers follow when issuing green bonds. Green bonds are financial instruments specifically earmarked to fund environmentally friendly and sustainable projects. These projects can range from renewable energy and energy efficiency initiatives to green buildings, clean transport, and climate change adaptation efforts. So the green bond framework typically includes, it concerns the use of proceeds, which is if you collect money for XYZ, you need to use it for the purpose, and these proceeds should be climate related. Then there should be there's a selection process, criteria for selecting eligible projects, ensuring they meet specific environmental standards. Issuers often work with external reviewers like environmental consultants and specialized organizations to verify the environmental credentials of the projects. Then there's a management of the proceeds. Transparent mechanism detailing how the funds raised through green bonds will be managed and allocated to the identified projects. There is typically a clear separation of these funds to prevent greenwashing, where funds are used for non-environmental purposes. Then there's impact measurements. As these are methods for assessing and quantifying the environmental impacts of the projects funded by the green bonds. These can include metrics such as carbon emission reduced, energy generated or water saved. Then there's a compliance and assurance. The framework often includes provision of ongoing compliance checks and assurance processes to ensure that the funded projects continue to meet defined environmental criteria over time. Then there's a provision for second-party opinion. This is some issuers seek a second-party opinion from an external party, often specialized consultancy or environmental expert. The second-party opinion provides an independent assessment of issuers' green bond framework, offering additional credibility to investors. So, central to most of these green projects, the ones that has to do with emission reduction, is the calculation of the greenhouse gas emission for the project. So there are standardized ways these emissions are calculated. Some of the key, the popular ones are there's the greenhouse gas protocol, there's the clean development mechanism methodology for calculating the emissions. There's the verified carbon standard, IFC greenhouse gas reduction accounting guidance for climate-related projects. And there's the IFI. This is the technical working group, harmonized greenhouse gas accounting standards. And there's the ISO 14064, part 1 and 2. These are different methodologies used for calculating emissions. Because it's important that these emissions are calculated with a standard verifiable method that can be verified by a third party. So different organizations have, depending on the project, it depends, there are different scenarios where different protocols will be used. So under the IFITWG, they have a list of different methodology depending on the kind of project. There's the one for approach for greenhouse gas accounting for renewable energy projects. This was released in 2019. So they are different, they are listed here, there are different methodologies. So I'll go ahead and give one example, do one example for a project to see how these kind of the greenhouse gas emissions are calculated. So this is an example for a wind turbine 1.5 megawatts project. The assumptions are operating hours of 3,000 hours per year, electricity production of 4.5 gigahertz per year. So the first thing you do is to determine the fossil primary energy input, which is the energy that is used to produce the. So if you can, this is the dimension of the primary energy input for the project. So this one is what before you build the plant, what the energy that is usually spent. Let's say if you want to do this 1.5 megawatts power. So determine the input. If it's solar now, it's zero fossil fuel inputs. And because solar doesn't have is a renewable energy. The next thing is to determine the direct CO2 emission produced by the project. So solar and wind, they don't produce CO2. So that one is zero. Then you determine the project baseline, which is the amount of electricity generated by the power plant, that is the amount of electricity generated by the wind turbine would otherwise come from the grid. That is the amount of the energy you are replacing. You understand the quantity of energy you are going to replace. So you calculate what your new plant will, how much CO2 it will use. Then you find out what the power is replacing. In other words, that way you find the savings. So definition of the project baseline. So the amount of electricity generated by the wind turbine would otherwise come from the electricity grid. Then calculation of the primary energy input baseline. So an energy grid, let's say in Nigeria, for example, the power that comes out, there's a level of efficiency in the whole system. There's the efficiency in the power plant, there's a transmission efficiency, there's a efficiency in the distribution. So typically for the developing countries, it's 32%. Not just the plant, but all the entire energy system. So according to International Energy Agency, so for developing countries is assumed to be 32%. So if your plant is supposed to be, the next thing, if your plant is supposed to be producing 4.5 gigawatts per year, that means if you add the inefficiencies of that production, what was actually done used was 14.1 gigahertz of energy. So this is what was burnt to produce that. So that is so you calculate the primary energy input. The next thing you do is you calculate the CO2 emission baseline. So you take the electricity production, multiply it by the country's emissions factor in electricity. So there's a table which I'll show you below. When you check the country, you get the factor for the country. So the factor for this one is 0.0069. So you multiply it by that power, and you will now get the CO2 emission. So in this example now, what it will now come out to is 3,100 CO2 tons per year. So the calculation of the reduction in the primary energy input and CO2 emission, what you now do is the baseline minus the primary input to now get the emission. So when you do that, this is the savings now that project will be saving per year. So this is part of what you are selling. You now say, see the amount of saving this is my solar plant, this is my solar power plant will now per year in CO2. So this is part of the basic inputs in your submissions for the financing or to any project proponent. So that is it for calculating CO2 emission. But Any methodology depends on the project, the location. There are so many indices, including if those people are poor and they were not using enough energy that they were supposed to be using if they had money. So you need to factor in that somebody in a village and they don't have fridge. You know that he doesn't want to buy fridge, but he can't afford it. So you can't now come and say when you add fridge for them that you are adding to the emission. No, they should have had fridge from day one. So there are ways to factor in those disparities due to income. So that's what we call a situation of suppressed demand. There's a different methodology for calculating CO2 under suppressed demand. So, but it's depending on the project, you now know the appropriate methodology to use for the calculation of the CO2. So this is the table where those factors are used in calculation are gotten from. Then the typical engagement in this kind of project is depending on the sector. So depending on the sector, you do what the project document development, which is you do the assessment in environmental issues, emissions, financial model, economic model, and safeguards. This is the social safeguards for the project. Then when you have done that, you now register the project with carbon validation and verification agencies and do certification. Then you can transfer the energy, the savings to the carbon inventory, and you can now do your carbon trading for the project. So the role of the infrastructure design engineer. So infrastructure design engineers can play a crucial role in climate smart projects by integrating climate smart considerations in their designs and practices. Some of the ways they can get involved in climate smart projects include climate risk assessments. Engineers can assess climate risk specific to regions where the project is located, understanding variabilities related to the extreme weather events, sea level rise, changing precipitation patterns and changing precipitation pattern is crucial for designing resilient infrastructure. So we need to be incorporating this. First, need to understand the issues, know how to incorporate it, and see how you can qualify for relevant climate financing for your projects. Because even if it's a government project, and you can still have introduced climate considerations that will make it climate smart and more sustainable. Then incorporate climate data, that is utilize climate data, feature climate projections in design process. Climate models can provide valuable information about how weather patterns might change over project lifetime, allowing engineers to design infrastructure that can withstand these changes. Sustainable materials and technologies. Engineers can use eco-friendly and sustainable materials in construction. Additionally, incorporate green technologies such as solar panels, energy-efficient lighting, rainwater harvesting systems to reduce the project's carbon footprint. Then nature-based solution. Explore nature-based solutions such as green roofs, permeable pavements, wetland restoration. These solutions not only help mitigate climate change, but also enhance biodiversity and improve overall environment. Water management. Develop effective water management strategies to address changing precipitation patterns. This could include designing effective drainage systems to prevent flooding during heavy rains and implement water conservation measures. But this one is part of, like, this water many of these erosion sites are caused by roads. And the new map has done a lot of work to try and educate us on how to do this properly. But we as engineers, we should also see how we can incorporate this in our everyday work. Then transportation planning, encourage the use of public transportation, cycling and walking by designing pedestrian-friendly spaces. Most times in Nigeria, when we design roads, nobody remembers about footpath and pedestrian walkway. We just do road and put gutter by the side, and the pedestrian will manage himself. But we need to find a way to make sure we incorporate this in the design, because if a client gives you a design to do, when you finish the design, add the walkway to the drain and add it. They won't, most times it will be implemented, but most times we just design the road and do drain and we move on. Then waste management, implement innovative waste management systems to reduce landfill waste and promote recycling and composting. Methane emissions from landfill are a significant contributor to climate change. And in this regard, things like at-source separation of waste, like if you go to like in artisan market and all these places that sell food, there's so much biodegradable waste, but they will go and pack it and mix it up with other ones. But this one straight from these places that have high biodegradable materials should be actually sent to a different landfill for composting and not used for fertilizer. But it's just that it won't be more expensive to do, but just that we have not thought about it and seen how best we can be more efficient. So if you come to a compost to landfill, most of the things there, like the plastics, can be reused. The biodegradables can be put in a landfill, a different one, and used for composting. The metal will be removed. So at the end of the day, you will have very little that will go to the actual permanent landfill. But it's just for us to think about it properly, and apply ourselves better to get a better results. Then policy advocacy. Engineers can advocate for policies that promote climate smart infrastructure, engaging with policymakers and advocating for sustainable policies at local, regional, national levels, and drive systemic change. In education and training, engineers can enhance their knowledge of climate change impacts and adaptation strategies through specialized courses, workshops, certifications. Then continuous learning and collaboration. Engineers should continually learn about new technologies and methods relating to climate smart infrastructure, collaborating with other professionals such as climate scientists, urban planners, and architects can lead to innovative, holistic solutions. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we can do better. Yeah, that was our guest speaker, Engineer Fueze, taking us through the topic for today, structuring climate smart projects. You will agree with me. He acquainted us with what climate change is all about. And then he defined what a green project is. He gave the key features and objectives of the Kyoto Protocol Clean Development Mechanism. He also spoke to measures needed to deliver the NDC target in the energy sector. He emphasized the role of infrastructure design engineers. I'm sure the audience can't wait to ask questions, but please permit me before we do that. I would now like to recognize all these distinguished engineers that are in attendance. And at this juncture, I'd like to start with a fellow of the Academy of Engineering, fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, past president of the Council for Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, and our own past president, ACEN. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking of Engineer I.S. Okunbayo. We also have our distinguished Vice President in attendance, Engineer Kamsalem A. Buka. We have a good number of council members here, Engineer Wale Lagunju, Engineer Elias Agbabiaka, Engineer Edward N. Moore, Engineer Olumo Sharafaddin. Past council members like Engineer Victor Yenuga, Engineer Fancy Ogolo, Engineer Kodeiya. You are well recognized. We have Engineer Dapo Isiola Oton of CPMS. We have Engineer Tokunbo Shogowawa of KOA. We have Engineer Victor Ezeji of KOA. We have Engineer Luwole Ali of CA Consultants Limited. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we also have Engineer Otunte Otuene, who also was a past council member. The recognition continues. At this time, we have 76 people online. And then, without wasting too much of your time, Engineer Peter Memodu, Engineer Abdulaziz of Jojo and Partners, Engineer Anefio Okobo, Engineer Ario, Engineer Asuko Basi, Engineer Chidido Mba, Engineer Chris Ene, Engineer mentioned Engineer Victor Yenuga, Engineer Abdul Fatai Akonde Isa of AFAS Engineering, Engineer FC Golo, once again, Engineer Gubioma, Engineer Hamidullah Ayomaya of ACMP, Engineer Hilary Equere, Engineer I.O. Iyilade of Neotech Associates Limited, Engineer Ifeanyi Okafo, Engineer John Okodeiya, once again, Engineer Lumo Sharafaddin, once again, Engineer Omoloye Tunde also of AFAS Engineering, Engineer Treasure Dima of PDC, Engineer Vala Adhamada of Basewatch Global Consults, Engineer Abubakar A. Mohammed, Engineer Ahmed Olaide, Engineer Francis Oriaki, Engineer Malik, also of Basewatch Global, Engineer Edi Atumoyongo of ACAMP, Engineer Malik, also of Basewatch Global Consults, Engineer Yu Oriaki of Arcade Consult Limited, Engineer Excel Oyekachi of PDC, Engineer Felix Nwako, Engineer Felishitan Suleiman, Engineer Benga Babayemi of Jojo and Partners, Engineer Godswill Nwajago of Basewatch Global Consult Limited, Engineer iPhone, I will not acknowledge if your name is not mentioned, Engineer Kayode Adeboye, Engineer Kingsley Ejimofo of KOA Consultants Limited, Lade, Engineer Lade, Engineer Mandi Sandhu, Engineer Muhammad Mala, and Absid Okoroma. I'd like to believe this is our distinguished past presidents, the immediate one for that matter, and the Honorable Treasurer of FIDIC Africa, Engineer George C. Okoroma. You are well recognized, sir. Engineer Okusoya. Engineer Olarewaju Oludare. Engineer Luwole Ali of Kakons once again. Engineer Oyekunle Taiwo. Engineer Patrick Awu. Engineer Peter Memudu. Engineer Roy of Jojo and Partners. Engineer Samson SMA 34. Engineer Samuel Akosile. Engineer Sonny Abdullahi. Engineer Tajuddin Ibrahim Meyaki. Engineer Taufik Agbola of Jojo and Partners. Engineer Tokumbo Shongowawa once again. Engineer Tony Nwogo, distinguished council member. Engineer Tunde Adebanjo. Engineer Usman Abdurrahman, also a past council member. Engineer Uthman of Eastwatch Global Consults. Engineer W.C. Oshondru of Waltech Engineering. Engineer Yakub Afiz. Engineer Yemi. Engineer Abidoye Oriyomi of also of Jojo and Partners. Engineer Nokia 1.3. Engineer Ogundiran Oluwatumili John. I'm saying here, Quartec Consulting Engineers Limited. Well, I'm not able to take your name. And lastly, Engineer Chijedo Umba and Engineer Aziz Idris. So that will be the recognition of those online for now. Now, we have 18 engineers here present, and then I'd like to quickly also recognize them. Of course, I can't overemphasize the presence of Engineer F. Ajibade Oke, the distinguished president of our association, AKE. Engineer Ikechukwu Ufoize, who has just treated us to very sumptuous business evening topic. And then the chief host, Engineer IODOK, Engineer Peter A. Chivu of Bastrop, Engineer CS Okonkwo of DCL, Engineer Sir Iboko FC of Alox Nigeria Limited. I have Transglobal here, but the name is not written. Maybe when I'm done, the person will take the mic and introduce himself. Engineer Chinedu Ugu, DOK Consultants Limited. Engineer Ofote Opsi. Please pardon me if that name is not correctly pronounced. Also, Engineer Uboke Kingsley of DOK Consultants Limited. Engineer Nebo Obina F. DOK Consultants. Engineer Henry Opalo. Engineer Godfrey Okonkwo. Engineer Okechukwu Ugu of Waveland Engineering Limited. Engineer Noriwe Njoku. Please permit me again if that name is not properly. I think your handwriting is just too fine. Engineer Osman Onya of Symmetrics Engineering Associates. Then we have Engineer DK Shuku, and also read this. I'm sorry. Please, if you are here and you are not pleased the way I've pronounced your name, indicate so that I can just pass you the mic and then you do the introduction.
Go to court.
We can do that very briefly. Okay. I think silence means everyone is in agreement. So,
Somebody did not invite the.
You write it.
Professional. Being
Dean and Partners. What's the name? Huh?
It's engineer Morton Anthony.
Morton Anthony of Dean and Partners. Okay, we also have engineer Dean and Morton Anthony of Dean and Partners. So that completes the 18 that are here present.
Excuse me, sir.
Well, I'm seeing online, someone has just shown Engineer Dapo Ajayi. You are also recognized. Now we want to move into the question and answer session. I would like to start from those that are online. Please kindly raise your hand. You will be duly recognized. You will be duly recognized and then be given opportunity to either ask a question or make your contribution. Okay, Engineer S.A. Youthman, please unmute yourself and then make your contribution or ask the question. Engineer S.A. Youthman. Please unmute yourself. Okay. In the meantime,
Maybe anybody.
no.
Okay.
I'm not sure if anyone is speaking online. It's just that we can't hear anyone. 2 people have raised their hands. In the meantime, please, you can also do well if you can type your question in the chat box. So we pick it from there and then we'll Engineer Foyce will do justice to it. So while that is being done, for those of us that are here in person, please, if you have a question, kindly indicate you have the mic and then you can ask your question or make your contribution. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, please. My name is Engineer Okey, Plan Engineering. I want to first of all apologize for coming to the meetings. Having said that, every bit of what the guest speaker or the speaker said is these are things if we implement, we go a whole long way in not just helping Africa or solving the climate, the challenges we're having with the climate, but we can also create jobs. So my question to the speaker is, because from everything you say, there's government and listening to even when you say Africa or Nigeria is not really doing what they want to do to issue of climate change or renewable energy or maintaining the greenhouse. So my question is there any way we can create a synergy between engineers or structural engineers or with the government? Because most of the things We talk even in Korean Assembly, ACEN conference, NSC conference. We found out that we are talking to ourselves. Like it's a privilege to have the president of ACEN at least. So my question is there any way we can, even this wonderful topic, would as well be part of, like the governor of Enugu had the retreats with the commissioners, and it's talking about disruptive innovation, how to do things differently. Some of these things could have helped. So is there any way we can create a synergy between engineers and the government so that, because we do not have the power to implement those valuable projects. When you're talking about smart projects, even the government is doing smart primary school 260 words in. And what the government meant by those smart schools is that every school has no business with the national grid. The school will be fully powered by solar. So such wonderful project, if the government of Enugu can lay hands on it, we can. I'm convinced we will implement most of the suggestions in this project. So the question is there any way, even ACEN at council level, we create a platform to have a synergy between ACEN, if I should narrow it down to ACEN now, between ACEN and both federal, state, and local governments.
Okay, thank you for your question. It's a good one because it's important that we work with government and structuring this project. Like when the government wanted to do the smart schools, it could have, it's a clear, it's clearly a dream project, and it's also it has social impact. So it's a good project that could have been structured for green bonds if they want to go that way. But we need to organize a forum where we can interface with governments and discuss with them. But this is not about government. That's what government is one way. There's still other ways but government moves very slowly. But government is good. Dealing with them is good. And one of the, this is a project is in a budget, and you can structure it as a green project. And also, most projects being done now should be done in such a way that it will be climate smart, so that we will not be repeating mistakes of the past in doing our new projects of today. So it's a good idea. It's now for us to find a way to create a forum for this engagement. Also, there's the opportunity to engage the private sector also for this, not just government. The government is where most of the projects come from. So it's good we interface with them. We need to structure something to interface with government.
Thank you, Engineer Fueze. We've seen Engineer Felix Nwako and Engineer Chinedu Umba both have their hands raised. And so please, you can Engineer Felix Nwako, you can go ahead with your question or contribution.
Yes, thank you very much, my MD. Good evening, everyone. And I want to start by, commending the guest lecturer for this very, wonderful topic. And I understand because of time, because at some point I lose the connection, but I understand he tried to use a very short time to talk a lot about this very important subject. But my question I want to ask, because I know when you talk about this kind of climate change solution and the rest, it starts with the consultants, and I want to ask, especially in the area of natural in the area of natural resources and conservation. I want to ask if at the moment there's any. I want to ask if at the moment there's any. I don't know. I hope I'm being heard. I just want to confirm
Yes.
that. Okay. Okay. I want to understand if at the moment there's any framework in Nigeria that see to this realization of this objective. Because let me give, for example, maybe let me come to the road sector now. Talking about this natural resources conservation. Let's say, okay, if as a consultant you want to do a design and you have a solution that will help reduce the thickness of stone base, which is one of the resources that takes a lot of carbon emission from the point of the quarry, taking transportation to sites, a lot of pollution. If I want to ask if maybe at the point of design, you come up with a solution that can, give you the same output. Let's say, for example, you're doing 200 mm stone base, and you have a design that will give you the same outputs, using other, carbon saving, materials that will reduce that thickness. So in this case, that's what I'm asking of the framework. I want to know, because I know there was some time the National Assembly, they were talking about a bill, for this carbon CO2 emission and the ozone, stuff like that. So I don't know if currently, if there's a framework, and also a framework that will see to it that, okay, once you come up with a design and is able to achieve some of these objectives, how can this credits that you talked about be achieved? And also, I would like, to use this opportunity to, ask that maybe subsequent time also, you could come and, break this presentation in bits so that, we can, get a good picture about the whole lecture. So that's just my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. If I get you right, you're saying if we can use that, if you have ideas to use alternative materials that will be less CO2 demanding, that will be emitting less CO2. Yes, it is.
Yes, sorry, I forgot to. Okay. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Engineer Felix from Arcade Council.
The targets where the government has set the country's NDCs, right? So it's for you to find out what you want to do or what you are doing and see how it matches with the government's NDCs. Because if you are these international agencies are working through the government and the Ministry of Environment. Yes, there are different ways that we can do things that will help the environment. But the focus, the government has clarified where it's focusing on. And if we are doing something that is public sector, ideally, we expect you key into the government determine the NDCs. But no matter what you are doing, the key thing is to, if you determine what you want to do, you calculate the business as normal emissions from the project, and you calculate the emission savings your changes will bring about, then you can quantify the CO2 savings of your idea or your activity or whatever you want to do. So where you now quantify the amount of CO2 that your innovation will create, then you now compare the additional cost to the CO2 savings. And you now know whether there's a cost benefit advantage for the new changes. But anything about this thing is that there should be a cost benefit analysis to whatever innovation or changes you want to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to believe that Engineer Felix Nwako actually have asked the question. So probably you need to have your hand lower. Let me just see if there is any.
From what we have, is everybody hearing? Hello? Yeah, from what we have heard, we have something we can say to either government, private sectors, that will make our projects, when things are like this is the time when we should bring in our best. And our best will be to take a niche as to what is required and what we can put forward to improve on the society, improve on what the problem and solve the problems. Now, Engineer Fego has said that the first thing you want to do if I'm trying to sell a project, do a cost benefit analysis. If you do the cost benefit analysis, then you can sell it to either the Nigerian government, the United Nations, whoever that will recognize it and buy it. In fact, we may be small or young or too little. We can make a combination of people work on a combination of projects and present it, and that will be quite recognized. On the issue of what is current ACEN and NSC doing to get the government to listen. Well, most of the times now, when we have seminars, we normally bring in government officials to us, and we are not talking. Before we have not been receiving audience, now we are receiving audience. So what can we do? We will continue to put it on that look, whatever we want to do, look inwards and we shall find solution. But we also need to work on what we will do to make sure that our solution is acceptable to the government. Thank you.
Another thing we can do is that when we have projects that you feel that there's room for some climate smart input or energy efficiency in the project, you can talk with consultants that have more information on the field and work together and see how we can, make progress. Most projects, there is room to make it climate smart if you think about the problem well enough. So it's something we need to open our minds to and always find a way to create climate smart projects. Thank you.
Yes, let me start by thanking Jimmy Fraser for the very comprehensive presentation on the climate change resilient projects. My question is, don't you think that climate resilient projects will mean increase in the budget for projects, which will be a disadvantage for governments?
Thank you very much. This is, okay, in summary, there's a conventional way of doing things. That conventional way is usually the most cost-effective way of doing it. To now do something in a climate smart way sometimes involves additional costs. Now, that additional cost, when you can demonstrate the climate importance of it, there are funds available to compensate for that climate. That is what, but you first need to identify the problem, do the cost benefit analysis, find a difference in price, then you now approach interested parties that will form the difference. So that's why there is always some kind of financing or grants, depending on what it is. And that is where that carbon credit comes in. If you now do your project in a smart way, then you can now sell carbon credits and have continuous revenue on the project. So you're not expected to lose money because of climate change. So that is why that's why I'm trying to, there are different mechanisms for the financing of the climate. But climate smart projects sometimes involve increase in price. But you need to identify the climate savings, identify, then you will now, but if you don't identify those climate savings and the solutions for it, then you cannot make progress. So the first is in your design, do what you need to do and find the addition, what they call the additionality, which is the climate additionality in the project. So, but if you do the design and carry on without doing the required studies and exposing the problem, then you cannot attract the person interested in that funding. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Time has been fast spent. We move now to AOB, and under item AOB, Aken will want to give some updates or make announcements with regards to its programs as a reminder to us. Please, we have had the announcement, but this is now a reminder that the 2023 annual conference and general meeting, this is the 45th edition, will take place at ASO Hall International Conference Center, Abuja, on Wednesday 1st and Thursday 2nd November this year. That's just about 2 weeks, or yes, about 2.5 weeks from now. Please, the early bird window has closed at the close of business yesterday, 11th. So which means that if you are still contemplating to be there, you will now have to pay a registration fee of 50,000 naira as against the 45,000 of the early bird window. And for those that may like to sit back at their respective places, whether Maiduguri, Katsina, Port Harcourt, Ibadan, or wherever, you have the option of sitting back and at the comfort of your office or home, you can be part of the 2-day events that will only cost you 60,000 naira. So please make it. The theme of that conference has been carefully selected. And I think it's been carefully selected to encourage participation. The theme is Advancing Consulting Engineering Practice in Nigeria and collaborating with governments for African free trade benefits. I do not want to say it all. The speakers that have been selected to speak to the team, the keynote, and the sub-teams are people that are trusted for good delivery. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let us be encouraged to participate in this all-important 45th annual conference and general meeting of the association in Abuja this year. I can tell you for free that the planning committee led by Engineer Binda Ajayi, FNSC, are doing everything possible to make sure that it is going to be a great experience in Abuja come that time. So that's the basic announcement we have. And then on this note, I'd like to invite our distinguished hosts.
Yes,
Okay. Under AOB. Okay. Under AOB, someone has just signified to wanting to make a contribution. Please. Okay.
Please, without wasting our time, my question goes to the president of ACTEN. My firm, we plan engineering limited was registered last year, July. But after the registration, we now got registered with Korean by September. But something happened. After we were registered with Korean, I think it was March last year. I couldn't now make it. I can go to Korean direct. In fact, the getting registered with ACTEN was a journey, a very big journey for me. If I had gone to Korean Paraventure, I would have registered 2018 when I began to nurse the idea of having a consulting firm. But going through ACTEN also helped me. I learned a whole lot. I could say it without missing words. I learned a whole lot. It's even beneficial to me. So my question to the president, by virtue of your membership as a member of statutory member of Korean Council, is it not possible to reverse it the way it used to be? You get registered with ACTEN before instead of now making it, you can go straight to Korean, and ACTEN becomes the choice. So it's been a funny desire. Since our Kakatapati is on ground, let me appeal to him or ask him whether he's making an effort, or if not, I think there's a need to go back to status quo where you get the current ACTEN first before you go to the current. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Initially, I thought everyone was on, but from the look of it, the president asked me. Well, let me say that people generally want to go through the easy course. But unfortunately, when you go through the easy course, there is something is wrong. And one of the biggest things is quality. You went through ACTEN, and I congratulate you. And I thank you for going through it. The issue with ACTEN is that we try to go through everything systematically. That we can say that once you are in member, we can vouch for you at the International Confederation of Engineers. And so once for you to get to that, for FIDIC to recognize you need to come to the ACTEN. And FIDIC, is international. So definitely there is not going to be any better place. What some people are looking for, which exactly what you are saying is they want an easy way. But I can tell you that the easy way will not come there. Because no, you cannot ask people to join ACTEN, right? But ACTEN is going to be very strong in the selection of consultants that are registered by college. So what they are losing by running away, they will still get by the other. So and not only that, when there's going to be the college is going to introduce 3 years renewal. And the 3-year renewal will be based on the protocol action. So please, we are working as much as we can. It's not, we are not doing it because we want to monopolize because we want to monopolize because we want to monopolize consultants. We are doing it because we want anybody can just retire. Thank God, all these buildings could have, riches could have, and everything. There has not been a single ACAN member that has been involved. And we are, I used that to post that is because we are stringent, very stringent in taking our people. So once we're a member of ACAN, we are saying world recognized. So eventually, I can tell you, we are working towards, I'm writing, I have to write a guideline for current, and I'm writing it, which will be submitted, and which they will consider, and I'm very sure that they will be there. At present moment, I'm a member of the selection committee for private education. And I can tell you that that is getting the big tough for those who wanted to take an easy out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, you need to come closer because of the mic. So that you can be there.
You really are so kind.
You're most welcome.
Stand this way.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Engineer Lance. I'm Tanya. I'm very often one site of engineer. Of course, I am the CEO for Main Engineering Consulting Systems. I decided to take this break to apologize for the lateness. It is not because of anything. I made proper arrangement. I came in all the way from the world.
Okay, we had that one topic.
Yes. I came with my engineers and we got into this town. I think exactly 2 beds. Then we passed it. Not belonging to me or us. We lived this somewhere towards the tail end of the hospital. By the time we found, everywhere I think it came traffic. Even when we got through the traffic, we beat these initial roads. We also passed the lowest. The guy living in forest has lost his job. We had to go beyond weekend. We now passed Noah's twice. And when we diverted here to Trace here, we also passed and went into before we eventually got time. Yes, I spent more than 2 hours on road suffering. But however, that's not another big issue because in engineering and in life itself, the end justifies the means. I met you here, and it's you learn this fast by the time assuming you all this fast, who will learn it? But what I want to create now is that what I got in here was angling to pick some excerpts, probably handouts from the lectures or this thing is like this finally. I'm proud to this moment that you see any sort of designer. So I want to appeal if I can get a copy or I can get soft copy, whichever. Even if we can arrange the soft copy now, I'll be glad. Because I have already entered the attendance and I've already spoken here. But when they will ask me one question from what's transpired, I will begin to test it. The only way I could get prepared is if I get something at all to browse. Thank you very much. I had you did a good job. Keep it up. God bless you. My pleasure, sir.
Thank you, engineer.
Thank you. You're very much welcome. Thanks again. And please rest assured that the soft copy of this presentation will be sent by mail to everyone that's participated. The only thing you need to do is ensure that we have your details by email. I mean, your email addresses. We will definitely have it.
Thank you very much.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, time has been fast spent. Now, please, at this time, I'd like to invite our chief hosts Zone 5, Arcade, has been asking all the questions. Now the opportunity came and they grabbed it. The last time I checked, we had 78 participants online, and then now 22 here present. The speaker today, from the feedback, has done a very good job. And then I'd like to invite the chief hosts and the coordinator of Arkansas Zone 5, Engineer IODOK, to please accept the plaque from the MD for onward transmission to the president, and kindly direct the president to present the plaque to the speaker. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, MD. You are all my witnesses. I'm directed to direct the president. Mr. President, I'm directing you to kindly present this plaque.
Thank you, Nadia. You have been directing this in 2007. So you without the MD. So continue directing it. Don't worry. I'm not complaining. Engineer, please, please, we want you to. You have already. No, yeah. You have what you have given to us. I'll read the basics that most of us possibly we don't know what was called carbon whatever. Carbon credits. Carbon credits. I always thought I thought it was money. Now you've been able to connect it to money. That is the most important. Now, whatever we are doing, we should think of the environment. Why is it that the United Nations, everybody is talking about that? It is because when we start having the conflicts, everybody will suffer for it. The monsoon that killed people in India the other time was traced to the warming of climate warming. And also we will add so many now. In fact, you notice that even earthquakes are coming up where we never thought they would never come up. Imagine Morocco. So it is becoming a real problem, which was going to cost a lot of money. And therefore, it is in the interest of the world to sponsor that we get carbon compliant projects. And we have made it look so simple. They are very grateful. Have I said the right thing? Yes. So we are very grateful for this. And I'm sure the people that are also online enjoy this very well. And for our brother that ran all through Enugu, and before he finally made the team, we thank you for the effort. So on behalf of the Association for Consulting Engineering in Nigeria, ACE, I present Engineer Ikechukwu Ufezi of Principal Partner of PSC Consultants Limited for this wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey,
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
They will not be, while they remain standing, they will be joined by the chief hosts, Engineer IODOK, and the MD.
Thank you.
So, if you can be kind enough to let us have sections now, the way we are seated, have it? So we can sit down there, we have section photographs, so that we can post it on the, I think.
Yes, ma'am. Where did you pay? Huh? You don't have to.
Yeah. Yes, please, gentlemen, there's a suggestion that if the president and the host, the speaker can just step out for other members here present to join for a group.
That's
This will be not happening.
Are you also directed to direct? That be directed. The director and not directed.
Yes, I think at this time now we can
Take on the.
take on the rulings.
And think of the.
Yes.
I mean,
The projector can go up now. Okay. I thought we wanted to.
We will take this. Part of their being.
Okay, the gentleman here, please, join the presidents. Can we capture everybody at the same time? All right. In that case, the president will move.
Let's go forward. Yes.
Yes.
We are back and forth.
Yes, please, everybody. Everybody.
Including the camera. Yeah, no. Samsung. I agree with you. We don't. Let's go with that. Okay. Not good. Really? Thank you.
Please, let's settle down. Please, let's gentlemen, please, let's settle down.
Sorry,
Distinguished gentlemen, before we close with the president's remarks, the president has directed me to direct Engineer Martins to kindly come forward and appreciate the coordinator of Arkansas 5 and the entire membership of this zone for a job well done when the president took the decision 12 months ago to move around Arkansas zones. The question was, will some zones be able to deliver? But he has been to Arkansas Zone 3, Zone 4, Zone 2, Zone 1, Zone 6, now Zone 5 has equally proven that they are up to the task, that the job has been well done. So, Engineer Martins, kindly be directed.
You know, I prepared the Sunday because it's 6 years for most people. But when I met you, I think I prepared the first thing. But now you're calling Martins. My name is Nathaniel. And the short of Nathaniel is Nax. That's actually how the company is set up. Now, President, I salute you. MD, I salute you. Our guest speaker is your friend, I salute you. You know, man is engineer, okay. Ajibade, President. Is that the president I know? Your own name, what's your own name?
Kale Sunday Vegan Nathaniel.
So you're nasty. So why did you call Martins? Well, I know the MD before you and them lots. Did you okay? Yes, sir. And now I turn to you. Yes, Speaker. I go. They don't engineering and all other members here. Then your pala. How can I forget? Your time. Some of you I know by face, some I don't know name. But there is a beauty that is gladdening my heart, and more especially why I am standing to give this vote of thanks. Not just because I'm late, but because I'm enjoying the first fruit salad, the fruit, and everything. I'll do it. It's a simple job, and I want to do it well. It's okay. Thank you very much. Coordinating this is not an easy thing, but looking at everything, a lot of things you did single-handedly, you didn't ask us in the zone to need to contribute. You're even refreshing us. You asked us on the forum there, the platform, indicate who is coming so that you will prepare to set us up. I appreciate. And in thanking the zone, I want to specially thank you very much. Please join the president in giving a clap Engineer of join the president to give Engineer Joke a clap of respect. All the rest. Engineer Howard, all of you. Clap, keep your clap. This is your I'm not doing it. So thank you very much, sir. In fact, again, on that score, I will do something like it's an appeal. We are all in this Zoom, and we'll do our things. We'll do our things. Our things are always done and done well. If we need speakers, we will get. If we need participants, we will get. We will not be lacking. So I clap for all of us. My appeal now is the next time this Zoom is hosting or carrying out a function, we are together. Please give away an opportunity to at least try to say they are part of this Zoom, so that it will not be like everything must be then on that, the first time is there's going to be a second time once it's done the first time. So it's best to make the request now, appeal anyway. How I want to make the appeal is the same way people made efforts to turn out. When it is going to be shifted to please make sure you try your best to turn it. We will also try to see if we can emulate Engineer Duke in coordinating. He will still be our coordinator for the same, but he can shift some of this to a sister training, younger brother training. I thank you very much. I thank all of you. President, I thank you. I thank you, especially our guest speaker. Thank you. May God lead everybody safely back in Jesus' name.
Distinguished gentlemen, and for those online, ladies and gentlemen, the president normally will give the closing remark. So it's at this junction that I like to call on our distinguished presidents, Engineer F. Ajibade Boke, fellow of the Grand Society of Engineers, to kindly give the closing remarks and declare the fourth business evening closed.
I do. You notice the difference, you notice that it will take the DIY away from me. What is left is okay. So we are related one way or the other. My guest lecturer, you are the immediate past donor coordinator. We are very happy for your direction. And for the support, and for the paper that was given up. It's not easy to go through that level. My dear now, I'm not going to be the president next time. Please sit down, sir. Because you know why you have to sit down. You are my in-law both ways. My daughter married from Tibetan. My brother, sorry, my daughter, my own junior brother, last one, my mother, also married from Udise. So, I'm already taking enough money for me. But I promise you that when if it comes to it, I will try for that. Even though I will be interested. The reason why we are doing this in every zone is to make sure we sensitize members and let people get interested in the activities of architects. And I can tell you now, we will take the people that are present with the people that are online. Now we'll be clocking more than 100. That to me is a good achievement. That to me is like the gospel according to Aken. We have questions, we try to answer questions. We have had a good meeting together. There is no rancor. Everybody was laughing. Even the person that wanted to go through could not reach. Finally found his way to this place. That is the sign that things are moving well. We have enjoyed the lecture, and we thank because it's given us food to eat, and the paper presenter are giving us food for thought. So we have food both situations. So we thank everybody for being part of this. The people that are online, we thank you. We thank all the staff of the GOK company, because we know it is not going to be easy to gather people. And we did it. I think it was not much short time. It is never easy. And our own staff and secretariat, the zonal coordinators, sorry, the zone, what do you call them? What do you call the Port Harcourt? The liaison officer, Port Harcourt, Abuja, and everything in Lagos, they kept on pumping it off. In fact, I felt that we were overdoing it because they spread it all over the zone, and they kept on pumping it practically every week. And towards all this period, they passed it so many times, I felt we are definitely. So I thank the staff of Aken for also being diligent. So everybody that is in here, my friends, you are all my friends. I thank you very much. I've enjoyed that stay. I've enjoyed. I think I took it back and I enjoyed. Then we have successful. God will bless you. So thank you everybody. We hope we will see you in Owerri. So, so on behalf of Aken Council, Aken ESCO Council, and the entire membership of Aken, I thank everybody, and I hereby declare this business will be closed. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Oh.
Thank you very much, sir. And have a good evening, sir.